a true story. This is an actual true story. Again, how many of you guys remember, by a show of hands, Camp Cedar Falls? Many of you remember it. Okay. Many, many churches go to Cedar Falls for a weekend retreat. Years ago, many, many years ago, a church went on a retreat to Camp Cedar Falls. And they got there on a Friday night. And as everyone was going to bed, there was a particular group of guys. Some homies that just, a little clique that like to hang together. And this group decided, hey, why don't we go and get our own cabin so that we can, be away from the parents and we can just chill and have a good time. So that's what they did. And of course, typical young guys, they were joking, laughing around, and apparently they were making so much noise that the neighbors around started saying, hey, quiet. They said, Sábados, Friday night, you should be asleep, preparing for church tomorrow. They didn't want to hear it. So they said, hey, why don't we leave and go to the farthest, deepest part of the camp? I got a feeling that there are some abandoned cabins there. Let's just go there and hang there. So that's what they did. They packed up their stuff and they all walked with their flashlights, because it was pretty late night already, and they went down to the deepest part of the camp and they found an abandoned cabin. And they said, hey, let's just chill here. So they got in and started being young, dumb kids. Well then, after a while, one of them decided to get really dumb. Because one of them said, hey, who's down to tell ghost stories? And I'm not talking about, fake made up ghost stories. I'm talking about, do you guys have like family that have ever like encountered an evil spirit or a ghost? Ooh, that sounded interesting. So they started to talk about that. And they started to basically swap stories. Well, the oldest one of the group, he had a real heart stopper of a story. Supposedly, his aunt, back in the native country where he came from, came face to face with a demon. And this kid went into detail breaking down this story. There was about, 9 or 10 of them. And they were all, these are teenage guys. Guys don't want to show they're scared, right? But these guys weren't moving. They were intrigued by the story that this oldest guy was sharing. Well, as the story kept on developing, winds picked up. It was apparently a windy night, but the winds got stronger and stronger. Now, I don't know if you've ever been, I know that Cedar Falls now for the last 20 years plus has had the hotel. But before the hotel, it was just cabins. And I don't know if you've ever been in a really old cabin and strong winds are hitting, where the walls are creaking. This was like the perfect setting for this little story. The point is, this story got so deep, so terrifying. You combine it with the winds, the strong winds, everything, that one of the guys actually said, you know what, hey, stop. This is getting out of hand. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't mind saying I'm scared to death. Now, what usually happens in a group of teenage guys when one says, I'm afraid? Bamba, jump and whatever. No. When he said, I don't know about you guys, but I'm terrified, everybody else pretty much was screaming, me too! So they all said, we should just stop. I think this has gone way too far. Let's just stop. And the oldest guy said, all right, fine. Like even he thought, yeah, maybe I went a little overboard. All right, fine. So they turned off the lights. Time to go to sleep. As soon as they turned off the lights, you hear from the youngest one. Now again, when you're a teenage guy and you're chilling with the boys, you'll take anything before you start crying. But the youngest one of the group was so terrified he could not hold back. He started literally crying. And instead of everyone saying, what a whip, no one said a word. Except to all caerles on the old one. See what you did, man? You're making them cry, man. Like they were almost ready to cry themselves. And so one of them ends up saying, dude, just turn on the lights. Let's just sleep with the lights on. Again, not a word. Everyone in silence saying, okay. So they asked the oldest one, since you were the one that did the storytelling, you get down and turn on the lights. So he was like, fine. He was on the higher bunk bed, so you hear him come down. And again, I don't know how many of you guys have been in these old cabins, you can't take one step without, they crack everywhere. He gets down, all the noise you hear from the coming down, walking, turns on the light. From the moment they turned off the lights to hearing the youngest one start crying, and then they turn on the lights, must have been like 1 minute. It was very quick. And in that 1 minute, you heard the oldest one come down, walk, turn on the light. When he turned on the lights, everyone in that cabin was frozen stiff. Because to their complete and total shock, when the lights came on, there were drawings all over the cabin. And these were not like little stick figure drawings that you can do in un 2x3. They looked like Da Vinci art, like drawings that would have taken hours to do. And these drawings were on the walls, on the floor, on the ceiling of the cabin. Impossible for even one of these drawings to have been done in that 60-second time period, and even less possible to do it without having been heard. When the guy came down and just walked to turn on the light, you heard the to get to the center of the roof, you would have had to bring a chair, stand on the chair, have a canvas and start. No way, beloved. But when they turned on the lights, drawings everywhere. And you know what these drawings were of? Demonic faces looking at them. And then you know how comic books have like a little cloud where someone's talking and you know that that's the person saying it? These demonic faces had clouds and they were speaking. And what these demonic faces all over were saying is things like, we are here. You have summoned us. We are with you. We are watching you. And this was not only on the walls, the ceiling, on the floor, it was on the bed, the roof of the bottom bunk, on the sides of the beds, everywhere. Needless to say, these young men were frozen stiff. No one said a word. One of the guys fainted. Literally fainted. On his bed. He was out because of the fear. About 10 minutes of silence, one of them tells again the oldest one, man, get rid of that deck of cards that you've got on your bed. Because he had brought a deck of cards, I guess play cards. But you guys know, for those that don't know, tarot cards and cards have a lot to do with spiritualism. And they were like, man, just get rid of those cards. Maybe it's the cards that brought it. Get rid of them. And without skipping a beat, the oldest one got out of bed again, got the cards, went to the door of the cabin. When he opened the door flung open because of the wind. It was strong, strong wind. Threw the cards. None of them landed because the wind carried them off. The wind was so strong it carried off the cards. He had to use both hands to bring the door back to being closed. He gets back into bed. Silence. No one is saying a word, not even making a sound. And for about another 3 hours, nothing but silence. No one could speak, no one could move. When those 3 hours roughly were about up, it was about 5 in the morning. And that's when the first one said, I think it's time to go to church. So they all get up at 5 in the morning, and there they are, putting on their suit and tie and getting all, well, actually no, before the suit and tie, they went to the bathrooms, to the showers, to take showers. And while they were there, usually all the guys in the shower, hey, talking, laughing, silence. Everyone shh, just shouting, not a word. And this group clung together like chicle, man. Not one went to go to the bathroom by himself. They were all together in a bunch. You couldn't separate them if your life depended on it. Once they get out of the showers, then they get dressed in their little suits and whatever, and they march right up to the nature center, which is the church. And around 6:30 in the morning, the church is empty, but there are the 9-10 guys all sitting there with their Bibles, looking pretty with their little suits, just waiting for church to start. Around 7:30 in the morning, the wife of the pastor shows up. And imagine her surprise. No one is in church, and the crazy psycho youth of the church, they're all there dressed in their suits with their Bibles ready to go. The pastor's wife said, what are you guys doing here? They couldn't care less how much trouble they got into. They ran to the pastor's wife and told her everything in detail. When the pastor's wife heard all this, she said, take me to the cabin. I need to see this. Fine, fine. They all took her and went to the cabin. When they opened the cabin door, guess what? All gone. No drawings, no film left over, like you could tell somebody tried to wipe or smear away, like it had never been done. These guys at this point were losing their minds. No, please, it was here. And they all stuck together, so they knew no one escaped to try to clean it up. But the pastor's wife said, don't trip. I believe you. Everything you're telling me makes perfect sense with the stupidity that you guys did last night. But what was even more gut-wrenching to these young men is that when they opened the cabin door, all the drawings were gone. But on the bed of the oldest one, the one who told the story, was the stack of cards neatly packed up on his bed. Again, they freak out. We threw this out. We threw this out in the wind. The cards didn't even land because the wind carried them. And the pastor's wife, wait, what? What wind? The wind from last night, the super strong wind. There was no wind last night. What are you talking about? There were some other people that wanted to try to do a fogata, a fire, and they had to turn it off. They couldn't because there wasn't enough wind to get the fire going. Are you guys nuts? And they're looking at each other like, we felt the house shake from the wind. But you see, nobody else at Cedar Falls felt that wind except them. Now, you hear a story like this, And you think, all right, man, if that did happen, yeah, that's nuts, that's crazy. But I mean, Pastor, come on. How do you really know that that happened? I mean, how do you believe such a far-fetched story like that? Well, the proof why you can believe it is because I have a picture of these guys. All the guys that were there that night, this is them. Does this guy look a little familiar to you? I mean, I know through the years he's changed quite a bit. That's me, beloved. You see, the reason I know that that night happened is because I was there. And I witnessed every single thing that I just shared with you. That night, I learned you don't mess with the devil. So much worse could have happened because of that night. But by God's grace, I was delivered. But I am a living testimony that you play with the devil, he will play back. All he's doing is looking for an opening. Now, I do want to tell you something. All of you, but especially the young people. I know that a story like this could, because it's happened many times before, freak someone out. Well, I don't even want to go to bed tonight. Let me tell you something. The devil does not come and mess with just anybody. Don't think that because you heard this story, oh man, now what's going to happen to me? Beloved, the devil does not come to mess with you unless you literally, willfully open the door and tell him, come and play with me. The way that we stupidly did that night.